My name is Stephen Tannen, Customer Success Manager for Tutor.com. Really excited that all you students can be here today for our AP Math Test Strategies webinar. Our host today is going to be Chris Knuth with the Princeton Review, and he has actually been an instructor for the Princeton Review for 19 years. So again, we're actually going to get started right now. Chris, take it away.
Good afternoon, everybody. I cannot thank you enough for showing up and hanging out with me for the next hour. I hope that you're doing fantastic. You're having a great start to your week so far. Stephen, thank you so much for that introduction. As you said, my name is Chris Knuth. I've been with the Princeton Review since July of 2004. As you can see on the screen, I'm certified in every single letter of the alphabet you can imagine, except for the MCAT exam. I cannot get on board with tests that last that long. I enjoy long walks on the beach. Dave Matthews Band by candlelight. Nah, I kid. That's absolutely not at all appropriate. Sadly, I enjoy math. I am an applied mathematician. I studied in Orlando, Florida, where I currently live at University of Central Florida. And I'm also a classically trained French chef. I do a lot of our editing or content development. I author calculus publications for the Princeton Review and Random House. I do a lot of work with the Princeton Review. What I'm here to talk to you about today are going to be some overall techniques designed to help you kind of maximize your efficiency on these tests. You've done so much work leading up to this point, and well, we want to kind of make sure that you're going to finish out the year on the good note. So you're going to take the test. You want to make sure you're getting that credit. And that's what today's about. I'm going to try to show you some overall ideologies. And then because I'm just a humongous math geek, I'm going to show you a couple cool little shortcuts. I hope you're excited. As you see on the screen, we're going to be talking about like why to take the AP exams. Basically, you already know the deal. It's so you can get further in your education pursuits and that you don't have to worry about them come the first semester of your college term. We're also going to talk about understanding the AP exams. With the broad scheme of the math focus, they all test very different disciplines at times. So we're going to try to focus on overall global ideologies that we can get you just to get you focused on how to arrive at the consistently correct answer in the most efficient ways. And talking about, of course, prepping for them. You're at the finish line. We know we're within that 1 month window until the tests are starting. So more than likely, you're feeling a lot of angst, a lot of pressure going into these tests. I hope that today helps to alleviate that in at least a very little bit. As you can see, I still go and take these tests from the picture that I've got on there. And it's just every single time I go and take any of these tests, it's always making me think of one key thing. Nothing changes. These are always standardized tests. When going into it, though, why we have to take the tests? Well, you already know the deal to that. You get your college credit earned. With that said, when you're looking for the 3 or the higher score, it's about knowing what you have to do to get that job done. You need to know your plan. You have to design and commit to a prep schedule. That's what this whole entire year that you've been putting into these courses has been all regarding. The big thing to remember, though, when you're going in for these, it's only for the required courses that you're going to have to complete. Now, when we're talking about the whole AP transfer credit situation, you know you get to skip your introductory classes. Usually a general education branch is what you're focusing on. Some students do AP exams, some do the dual enrollment, some do both. I know I did back in the day. It's just about making sure that you're getting your credit for all the hard work that you're putting into these. So now when you do get this credit, you are absolutely able to get started into your major track. I remember I couldn't wait to get into college because I could just focus on my major of math. Thankfully, it was, like I said, that one subject I never had to worry about. That way I didn't have to worry about the gen ed at all. I could just absolutely kick back and enjoy every course at college because it was strictly about my professional choice. When you're going into the tests, no doubt this is nothing new for any of you. You know the number scheme, basically what it's going to correlate to going into the tests. It's letting the colleges know that you're committed, that you can handle the workload, that you're achieving the scores that you would get in that college equivalent course. And so usually the college is going to be cutting it off at the 3. Not every college, though, is going to allow a 3 for the passing. So you want to make sure to keep that in mind and know exactly which ones there are. With that said, though, it's about knowing what you have to do to get to those top scores. And on this test, well, since not all colleges are going to require them, and when you're taking these tests, if you know just about what you have to do to get into that top tier score range, that's going to be half the battle. What you have to do and nothing more is going to be critical. So many times we get focused on doing all of the work required in the question. And depending on the questions that you're taking, that's not exactly what's going to be required. What I mean by that is a lot of people just go to the question stem and don't look any further. In any multiple choice part of a test, the answers hold the answer. When I say do only what you need to get the job done and nothing more, I'm saying don't just stop reading at that question. Make sure that you're checking your answer choices. So many bad answers can get eliminated just because they have nothing to do with what the question's testing. Always make sure that you're actively reading all parts of what's on the page in front of you, because there's always shortcuts. Again, you're only graded on how well you stress color inside the lines. That's all it really is. You heard me correctly. Glorified coloring test. When you're getting into those answers, make sure you're using them to your advantage and striking out. Every single question has a lot more bad answers than it does just that one okay or good answer. Your job, take out the trash. We're going to talk much more about that shortly. You're going to see the big subjects up on the slide right now. AP Pre-Calculus is brand new still. They're working out the upcoming program, but everything else, everything that you need to know about the courses, you can absolutely check out at apcentral.collegeboard.org/courses, and you're going to find your course exam descriptions, any test day allowances, any restrictions that you have to deal with, just so that you have all of the information that's necessary going into the test day. Right now, you're more than likely prepping for the tests in your courses. You're taking practice tests, you're focusing on free response questions, you're doing an overall review, you're trying to coordinate your own study plan over this next month, and more than likely, this is not your only AP exam that you're taking. It's a lot of a balancing act that you got to kind of mend to and make sure that you have all the tools available at your success. Because now with the top score, you may have already heard that, what's going to get you the top score on this test is nothing at all that would be acceptable in a school-based test. Don't forget, even though you're learning the content in your classroom right now, your math teacher is not grading this test. Your computer teacher is not grading this test. You basically just have to make sure that you're doing the work to get the job done. With the next slide again, for the most part, usually, like it says, 70 to 75% accuracy gets you that 5 on the test. So many people stress and sweat and rush through a section to give every single question an opportunity. And what I'm saying to do is slow down, work smarter, not harder. Basically, we're going to talk about, like I said, global techniques to get you focused on how to tackle the questions that you want to knock out of the park. You just have to remember to play to your strengths more than anything. What's going to be not okay in school is absolutely beautiful for our performances required on this test. Just need to remember what game you're playing. So you already know more than likely when you're taking your test. For the AP Computer Science, you're planning for your afternoon administration on May 3rd. For principals, May 8th in the afternoon. Calc AB and BC, both are going to be that May 8th morning. And then statistics in May 4th in the afternoon. What that means for us, you want to make sure that when you're studying, know your deadline, know when you're going to be scheduling your breaks. Even though you're going to be studying and planning to knock this test out, you still need to remember to make sure and rest your brain. You got a lot going on at this part of the year. Do not overload yourself. You don't want to have burnout, especially when you're getting to the day. The day before the test, I would actually recommend put the books down as best as you possibly can. You have to rest. You have to build your mental endurance going into it. And so the best way to do that, don't stress yourself out the day before the test. Knowing exactly when you're taking your exams helps to let you know when your deadline is for your preparation schedule. But it's only going to work as a preparation schedule if you design and commit to your own plan. You have to follow it to a T. What happens is, if you don't use it, you will lose it. Think about what you did at the start of the year. It's definitely an indirect relationship. The later on, or the earlier on in the year that was, the less retention likelihood it is. So you more than likely right now, with about a month out, are looking to focus on those earlier concepts. And rightfully so. You've got your maximum amount of time right now up until test day. But as you're getting closer to the test, if you're not able to start studying as strongly as you would like to, you got to shift your priorities. The closer you get to your test date, you have to start focusing on your strengths more than your weaknesses. When you have much more time, weaknesses are allowed to be focused on because you've got that additional time. When you're getting right up to it, if you only had, let's say, 3 days left to prep for your test, don't go learn something new or try to revisit something that was just completely forgotten. No, you need to solidify that where you're going to be putting your work, it's going to be paying off in your advantage. Be smart about your timing, because when you do put it down and you don't start and you don't keep studying and practicing, it's just like it will leave you quicker than anything you know. I do calculus daily and it still keeps my skills sharp and fresh and everything. But if I were to do it, it's a whole nother story. We have to make sure that whatever we're going to be doing on the test, we need to make sure it's paying out in our advantage. Because the enemy is the test. It's a beast. You know what's coming up around the corner. When you're prepping through and taking practice exams, a lot of people will mistakenly just look at questions that they answered incorrectly. On these tests, you can learn just as much from what you get correct and what you get incorrect. Let's say, even though you got a question correct, did you get it correct in the most efficient way possible? Whenever you're taking practice exams, more than likely, you've got access to practice explanations, or your teacher in school is going to be there to help and clarify whatever concepts were tested in the question, just to make sure that you're staying on track with what you need to make sure and get correct come test day. You have to know exactly what's going on in that test, what concepts cover in the test, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are. There is so much at every step along the way. Because when you are preparing, you need to make sure that you're not falling for common traps. Just a couple things here. It is a standardized test, and College Board makes these tests. If you've taken like your SATs or ACTs, you know what I'm talking about with College Board and these like kind of built-in traps. College Board is the overall enemy. The AP exams, don't get me wrong, they are fair for the content that they test. You're taking a years-long course and you want to make sure that everything that you're learning is being retained. But now, just because we're learning all the content at the appropriate times a year, what I wanted to do, well, let's try a little bit of a predictability situation here. I'm going to say 4 things, and I want you to just write down the very first thing that comes to mind. Make sure to grab a pencil, grab a sheet of paper. I'm just going to want you to write down the very first thing that comes to mind when I say the following 4 things. So, first thing I'm going to say, peanut butter. Write down the very first thing that comes to mind, peanut butter. Next thing I'm going to say, left. Write down the first thing that comes to mind. When I say left, write down the first thing that comes to mind. If I say up, write down the first thing that comes to mind. Up, write down the first thing that comes to mind. If I say pick any number in the world, any number, lucky number, favorite number, whatever, write down the first thing that comes to mind. All right, everybody, you got them? So for the first one, I said peanut butter. Anybody write down jelly, banana, sandwich, bread? If you did, you're not alone. What about for the next one? Oh, sorry, for what I said left. Did anybody write right? See raising the hand. When I said up, did anybody write down? Yeah. Ultimately here, what's going on, like I said, you're not alone. It's just playing to the nature of the test here. It's a predictable test. The test is always designed with specific traps in mind. Like, here's where I'm going to start to freak you all out. Like, as I said, I'm a mathematician, right? I'm also a little bit psychic. I'm actually going to be, let's see, we've got what, 17 participants in the room. I'm going to now name every single number that you have written down on the sheet of paper right now. And I'm totally lying. I can't do that at all. I shouldn't lie. Lying's not good for the soul. But I'm going to guess the ballpark that you're in for your number. I'm sure everybody wrote down something like 262.7493. No, okay. Then each of you had to write down something like 54,000. High? Not just a delicious dessert. What about -2? How about a whole number from 1 to 100, give or take? That's what I'm talking about right there. On this test, there is predictability built into it. What we need to be careful about going into the test is that we're not just falling for these slight traps that can show up on the test. The test is littered with them. There are so many pitfalls. Stuff like this, it just is designed to show us how, we're not invincible. We do have to make sure that we're remembering what game we're playing. When you get into a question, don't stop halfway in a question, assuming you know exactly what's going to be the outcome. There's no way for you to possibly know that. You have to know exactly what's coming up against you. And don't forget to look down at those answers. I'm just saying, usually 50% of your answers are bogus trap answers that could be easily eliminated. They're everywhere on these tests, so you have to make sure that you're able to identify them, spot them, and then make your best guesses. Like me, just curious, what year of school are you in? Should see a poll popping up right now. Go ahead and submit the year that you're in. Very nice. We got a nice rounded out group today. And so, with this year that you're in, think back out of all of your years of education, anytime you've taken a test, was there ever a time that you got to a question that, you swore up and down, you knocked it out of the park, you got that question correct, but then you had a second guess, or you went back and double checked your work and you changed the correct answer and you marked it to a different answer, only to find out when you got it back that you should have left it alone to begin with? Has that ever happened to anybody at all? I'll tell you what, if it's ever even happened once, the sting of that burn. That hurts more than anything because you feel like you got robbed more than anything else. These tests are designed for that across all grade levels. And here's the results of those polls. Basically, no matter what year we're in, we've lived, we know what's going against us. Tests are designed to gauge how well you're comprehending the material that you're learning and what is going on in terms of whether or not it's routine. So when you're going into these questions, when you're seeing if something's a little too good to be true in an answer choice, just be very careful. Don't go necessarily for that obviously right answer when it's jumping out. That's what these 4 items that I was saying out loud were designed to help you focus on. These tests are built on a predictable nature. College Board is the monarch of the predictable nature creator. It's simply a matter of knowing how to avoid those traps. How about real quick, where is everybody located? Northeast, Southeast, I'm right there with you. All right, nice again, stretched all over, very nice. Almost got everybody's responses. No matter what I see, we're all coming from all areas in this country. And when we're going into these tests, no matter where we're at, the AP exams, what the big thing is that they pride themselves on, that they actually are showing the exact same information at all parts of the year. No matter what AP course you're taking, your program didn't just come to be out of thin air. No, the teacher has to be a certified AP teacher, has to make sure that they're submitting the lesson plans for overall approval and authorization. And then the information must be disseminated throughout the year in the strict program that's governed by College Board. They have to give all the thumbs up for it whenever they are going to include an AP program in a school. There's nothing at all that can get skimped on in an AP course. So now come this time when you're prepping, more than likely, like I was saying, it's just going to be test review and getting as many practices under your belt as possible. Has everybody gotten to check out collegeboard.org or begun taking practice tests, looking for like how your scores are going? I know like at this part of the year when I was taking my AP exams, I was not at all looking forward to the free response sections. Multiple choice was my jam. Free response questions terrified me beyond belief, no matter what the subject was, especially with the calculus back in the day. I was not as strong with it as I am now, of course. Still did very well on the test, just I found myself making a lot of the mistakes that I instruct people on daily now not to make, feeling that I was just getting overwhelmed, rushing through questions to get through everything, when I really should have been just going into the ones that I knew more than anything, then going back through. Because what we're going to be seeing on this slide, there's going to be a lot coming at you, my friends. With all of you in this room, you've got a POOD, your POOD, your personal order of difficulty. The tests, the way that they're going to be structured, they're designed not to be completed. You're always going to feel the pressure of the clock running down on you come test day. Your personal order of difficulty is going to be that inner voice that's saying, I know how to do this. I'm feeling good. I'm going to commit to this question. It's also the inner voice that you have to listen to the most that's saying, whoa, this question's a freaking nightmare. I'm not going to be committing to this one. I need to move on. When you're going into the test, don't take it in the order that they're making you take it. Don't get me wrong, you have to stay committed within the section, but you don't have to go question 1, question 2, question 3 until the end of it. No, there are easy questions, there are hard questions, there are quick questions, there are lengthy questions. You're the only one who can make that call. If you ever get tripped up on a question, that immediately becomes the hardest question in the world, and the fear starts to set in. Take a deep breath. You need to move on from that question. Don't play the game that they want you to play. You need to figure out what game works for you. Because process of elimination is, well, the moral of the story on any multiple choice test with answer choices. You have to look for the garbage and take out the trash. It's way easier to spot the bad answers than it is to find the one that's nearly expertly hidden from you. If you know something is immediately incorrect, kill it forever. Don't go looking for what's good. When we look for what's good, that's usually when the pitfalls start to happen. Because your sections, no matter what test you're taking, they're lengthy. You're going to feel exhausted after your test. There's no sugarcoating that. You know what you're prepping for. That's where mental endurance is critical. You have to have your solid reactionary tactics set in play. You have to know what you're going to commit to, what you're going to move on from. Like my golden rule, don't do any word problems immediately. Go to the quickest, shortest questions, short answers. Preserve the mental endurance up top. The word problems, well, honestly, words are problems. It's about not knowing when to stop reading. A lot of people, when they start to read a word problem, they get overwhelmed. It's a quick snowball effect. You're going to keep reading, and that doesn't help anybody. I'm not saying reading is not good. I mean, yeah, keep reading, but in the word problems on the test, do a little bit at a time. If you're able to calculate something, stop and figure it out. But no matter what, I would say in the word problem, you should make sure to underline your final question, know your job, and actually underline your question part for every question that you're going to tackle. Know precisely what it is you have to figure out. In the process of elimination stage of things, there are a lot of partial answers along the way. Let's say in calculus, you have to find a second derivative. Better believe the first derivative is going to be there, or the integral will be a part of a trap answer. It's about knowing precisely what they're asking you so that when needed, you can make your best aggressive guess on the test. There's no penalty for getting questions incorrect. So no matter what, you're going to answer every single question. You may not work every single question, but you will be answering. I'm going to call time of death 4:30 Eastern time, 1:30 Pacific time. No more blanks ever on these tests. Oh, sorry. Have to make sure that when you are taking your test, you've got a reaction plan. There are now questions, there are later questions, and then there are LOTD questions. If you get to a question and you have absolutely zero idea what's going on, sure, you can circle it and come back. But if you don't know at all, not just like you're blanking, like you forgot, but you're going to remember, but it just looks like it's an ancient Sanskrit as far as you're concerned. Like there's going to be no solution whatsoever. That's going to be a question in which you just have to throw a letter of the day, making it like a consistent letter, minus C. C for correct, C for Chris. If that works for you, it's yours. Enjoy. You have to have a battle plan. If you know you're going to get a question right in a lightning quick amount of time, commit to that question. If you know you're going to get a question correct, but you're going to have to take a little bit of time to set it up and do the work, circle that question, come back to it. Get that point later. Your job, since the clock is always running against you, you need to maximize your pacing efficiency on the test. Have to know exactly what to move on from and what to commit to. Because now, when we're talking about like process of elimination, I keep saying, don't look for the good, look for the bad, look for the bad. It's a lot easier to spot the garbage. We've got to take out the trash. For example, if I ask you what the capital Malawi is, don't look it up on your phone or anything, not at all. Right now, more than likely, you're drawing a blank. Not exactly something that everybody knows off the top of their heads. If you do know that, outstanding. What I'm going to do, I'm going to turn it into a multiple choice test for you. I want you to raise your hand the exact moment when you know your correct answer. I'm going to start putting some answers up for you to choose from, and let me know the exact moment when you know your correct answer. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. How do you know your answer? Good old Edgar Allan Poe. I don't even have that answer up there, but that's what the process of elimination is going for us. The bad answers on the test, though maybe not for every single question, they really can be this obvious, no matter what subject you're taking and prepping for. Just in case you're curious, you got the question right. Ultimately here, it's simply a matter of remembering when you've got your answer. Always be mindful of what's going on those answer choices. That way you'll know how much, but more importantly, how actually very little work is required to get the job done and earn that credit that you're striving for. When you're getting into these tests, yeah, even though we're talking AP math, it's always about still a glorified reading test. We need to know exactly the battle plan going into it. These tests are nothing more than just pressure-filled, focused areas of study that we're going for. Once we know our techniques and how to tackle them, it's really not too bad in the long run. Just looking for the bad answers, though, when taking out the trash is half the battle. Because what I wanted to show you real quick, I'm going to show you some cool things to look out for like here. And I'll show you a couple of other cool little things that aren't going to be on this slide. But with any time like that, I got into the numbers game. When I was in college, I realized, I don't like proofs. I don't like theorems at all. I'm not a pure mathematician. I'm an applied mathematician. I like reactionary tactics. I like that I can look at a math question, I can figure it out, game over. Now, so multiplying by nines, more than likely you've seen like the cool handy dandy finger thing that you can just kind of look over. If you ever don't feel like doing the handy dandy cool finger thing, you can always just kind of jot down your digits, 0 to 9, and then make a U-turn, stack them the other way, and those will always give you your first 10 products no matter what. I know, again, nothing too big whatsoever. Well, multiplying by 11, I'm going to start simple. Think about 11 times 11 without the calculator. More than likely you got 121. Yeah, that's kind of one of the ones that we have to memorize from the beginning part of life. But what I want to point out, if you're going to multiply anything by 11, 11 times 11 is 121 because it starts in 1, it ends in 1, and the middle number is just 1 plus 1. So 11 times 12 should be 132 because it starts in 1, ends in 2, and the middle number is 1 plus 2, or 3. So without a calculator, what's 11 times 13? Think about what it's going to start in, end in, and the middle number. Raise your hand if you got 143. Excellent. Now, what about 11 times 19? Try the shortcut and see what happens. If you're thinking starting in 1, ending in 9, middle number 10, we made a big mistake. It's not going to catapult into the thousands by any means. If you're thinking it's going to be in the 200s, though, you got it. The middle number is the problem on this question. It will end in 9, but since there's a 2-digit middle number, we've got to make sure and carry the first digit over, which will be the 1. So it'll end in 9. The middle number will be a 0. We're going to carry the 1 to the other first one, and then just add down again to the 209. With that said, try 11 times 67, no calculator. Give you a couple seconds. Think about what it's going to end in. Look for that middle number hiccup. And raise your hand if you got it. 737, coming in for landing. Outstanding, everybody. So now, what if I ask you, what's 104 squared in 2 seconds? Did we all get 10816? Or 106 squared, did you all get 11236? Any time that you have to kind of square numbers close to 100 in your head. Well, let's go back to 104 squared. Always remember, add above. 104 is 4 units above 100. So my first step, I'm going to add 4 to the 104. That'll be my first 3 digits, 108. I'm going to create 2 spaces. I have to square something. So 4 squared is going to be 16. So my overall 104 squared has to equal 10816. Like 106 squared, it's 6 units above 100. So step 1, add 6. That's your first 3 digits, 112, space, space. You have to square something. Square the 6. And those will be your final 2 digits. So 106 squared is 11236. What would you get? Give it a try with 108 squared. Give you a couple seconds. 108 squared. Raise your hand if you got 11664. Look at that. Look at that. It's sneaky, but it's kind of like weird that this just happens like that. Or if, let's go 109 squared. 11881. Yeah. What about 112 squared? Give it a try. You know how it goes in math. Anything that's cool as a little trick, there has to be a hiccup. There is one like that with the 11s trick. For 112 squared, well, it's 12 units above, so I'm going to go to 124 space. Uh-oh. 12 squared is not 2 digits. But if we have the 124 with the 2 spaces, I'm gonna put the 12 squared in there of 144. I can only fit the 44 though. I'm gonna carry the 1 above the 4 from the 124. And so my final product, my final squaring should be 12544. And that would be 12 squared. Or 112 squared, sorry. And so really those squaring numbers close to 100 in your head works for as comfortable with your perfect squares as you are. I remember I had 2 days off in a row. I still don't know how that happened, quite honestly. And I tried to see how far away from 100 I could get. Long story short, I made it to something like 353 squared. And it's not at all a shortcut at that point anymore. But now if you're adding above 100, if you're below 100, you would subtract. So like 96 squared. Well, I'm 4 units below 100. So the hardest part of that, I'm not going to subtract 6. I'm going to subtract 4 because that's how far away from 100 I am. I'm going to get my first 2 digits that way. 92 space. And then just square the difference of 4. So 96 squared should be 9216. That's stuff that always got me interested with math, like stuff that I can just kind of look at and react with it. Like I said, I do calculus daily, and what I wanted to show, it's really going to be specific for calculus, or if you're taking trig or pre-calculus, if you've had to learn the unit circle, well, more than likely, you're just kind of given a blank unit circle and told just memorize the coordinates, how to fill them in and everything. The unit circle though, everything in trigonometry is cyclical, like everything repeats. You just have to juggle whatever sign changes are happening. More than likely, you've seen the shortcut of where you can just kind of create the table and you only need to know your value for your signs across the top row. So like everything has a square root, everything is cut in half. All you have to remember in your sine row is starting from sine of 0 degrees. You just put a 0 in that first radical and then count up down the line. The cosine would just be the reciprocal of that, like flipping and reversing the order, backtracking, because, you know, sine and cosine cross each other. More than likely, what you haven't seen though, if you need to know the unit circle ever, look at the palm of your hand. Either hand will work for this. Starting with your pinky, you're gonna have 0 degrees. Your ring finger is 30 degrees. Middle is 45 degrees. Index 60 degrees. Thumb 90 degrees. Let's start simple. Let's say I want to figure out the sine of 45 degrees. Fold down your middle finger toward you. What you have to remember Your lower fingers are your sign fingers. The only thing that changes is the number that goes under the radical. So your sine of 45 has to be the radical 2 over 2. Your cosine is your top fingers. So radical 2 over 2. What about like the 30 degrees? Fold your ring finger toward you. Your low finger is the numerator of your sine function. So the sine of 30 degrees is the square root of 1 over 2, or just the 1/2. Your cosine, radical 3 over 2 for the 30 degrees. Index would be 60. Notice your sine is going to flip, radical 3 over 2, and your cosine of 60 is just the 1/2. I don't know if everybody's seen that or not, but when I learned that, I was blown away. It just made it so like you never ever had to memorize the values. You just kind of could look at the palm of your hand and just know them. Different things like that. I just want to kind of show. I know it's strictly for the calculus, but I hope it helps. Even if you go and take like the trig, the pre-calc, whatever, there's your unit circle values. Just curious, did anybody know that? Did raise your hand? Okay, awesome, awesome. I'm the calculus guy on YouTube. If you got to see any of like my live streams for the AP prep from last year or anything, I know I did that on those videos too. But I hope that it helps more than anything. So what I want to do, I was going to pass it over to Stephen to talk to you a little bit about the Tutor.com. A couple slides here for him. If I see there's a question coming up. But Stephen, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Chris. And Chris, we do have a question if you can answer it. It says, could you explain the unit circle trick again?
Oh, of course. So with the unit circle trick, what's going on is every value for sine and cosine, it's going to be a square root of something divided by 2. So all that's happening, like for your sine values, sine of 0 would be square root of 0 over 2. Sine of 30 would be square root of 1 over 2. Sine of 45, square root of 2 over 2. Sine of 60, square root of 3 over 2. And then sine of 90, square root of 4 over 2. What I'm saying, if you look at the palm of your hand, either hand, starting with your pinky, 0 degrees, your ring would be 30. Your middle is 45. Your index is 60. And your thumb is 90. Just to start simple, the sine and the cosine, they have exactly identical values at 45 degrees. So if you fold your middle finger toward you, your low fingers are your sine fingers. That would go under the radical. So for sine of 45, it's radical 2 over 2. For cosine, it's radical 2 over 2. For, let's say, the 30 degrees, fold your ring finger toward you. Your sine is your low fingers. So your sine of 30 is radical 1 over 2, or just 1/2. Your cosine, radical 3 divided by 2 for the 30-degree angle mark. To flip it, if we go like to the 60 degrees, fold your index finger toward you. Your bottom fingers are your sine fingers. So the numerator under the radical has to be radical 3 divided by 2. And your cosine would be the 1 finger up top here, or radical 1 over 2. I hope that helped to clarify. I know it's weird looking at it at first, but it totally works for it. But I do hope that that helped with the clarification of it.
And Chris, we actually do have another question in the Q&A room. And what is the most effective way to study for the AP test? Is relearning all of the material in a course better than doing practice problems?
Ooh, it's actually going to be a blend of that. What I was saying earlier was the farther out you are time-wise, the more that you can put into studying the lesser known concepts. So if you do have a cramped study schedule and you can only set a specific amount of time, it's going to be first about just kind of taking a blank sheet of paper, make 3 columns, one that says nailed it, one that says kind of remember it, and one that just says, huh, like you have no idea, can't even remember the littlest thing about it. When you're getting closer to the exam time, Looking at the concepts of those categories, it's going to let you know where you want to put your most focus, effort, and time. Now, when you're reviewing concepts, it's beneficial to kind of just grab the multiple choice section and do a practice section. Bring the time in always. Focus on playing to your strengths when you're doing those sections. Remember what I was saying earlier, though. If you're going to take a practice test section, make sure that you're going to review that entire practice test section. One of the best things you can do when studying is not only looking at what you got wrong, you need to make sure that what you got right in the right way, especially with the whole letter of the day ideology. That's what a lot of people figure or forget about. If you're going into a practice section and you don't know how to do something, you drop a letter of the day and you get the question right. Yay, you get that point, but you also forget to look over it. I hope that helps when studying. You do and review, but I would highly recommend the 3 columns on the sheet of paper for I know it, I kind of know it, and what, and then just kind of playing to, depending on how much time you have to study and where you can play to your strengths and what your weaknesses are, that'll be your focus. But it's kind of a blend of both. I'd say review concepts and then test to make sure that those concepts you're setting in. I hope that helps. And the second question.
We do have one other question coming in, and these are great questions, students.
Yes, thank you so much, everybody.
This is a question that came in. What is the maximum amount of time you would recommend spending on a multiple choice or free response question on the AP exam before moving on? Or is the answer different depending on the question?
That's excellent right there. Okay, so multiple choice. What I was saying earlier, if you read a question and it looks like ancient Sanskrit to begin with, you have no idea what to go, that's immediately a letter of the day. Move on, forget it existed. I actually, in my test booklets, when I go and take these, I'll just put a huge X over that question. So I'm not even tempted to throw any more time at it. If you know you can get a question right immediately, then you need to commit to that question. But it's going to be different for everybody with the timing that you should spend on a question. The safe answer to it, the really only logical answer I can provide, you got to spend the time on the question that you need to get the credit for it. But that's where I'm saying always be mindful of your answer choices. You're going to see a lot of partial answers along the way, and you're going to see a lot of things that are incorrectly applying the principles that the question's testing you on. For example, with taking a second derivative in calculus, trap answer will include the first derivative. So like we want to be on the lookout for anything along those lines of partial answers, or things that do too many steps all at once. Depending on what the answers are, that can be your saving grace in the multiple choice section to let you know when you can select the final answer. Free response, well, depending on what's going to be too much time, it depends on how much simplification you do. For example, in a free response question that requires you to find the instantaneous rate of change on a function, you know you're going to be taking a derivative and then plugging in whatever point they give. So many people, though, when they take that derivative, worry about the complex algebra simplifying and manipulating everything. Apply the first derivative and plug that point in immediately. Do not worry about the simplification whatsoever. That's just going to kill so much time. I wish I could say like, oh, on this one, you only spend 9 minutes. This one, you spend 7.5 minutes. I wish I had it down to that kind of a science for everybody. I sincerely do. But I hope that that makes sense with like how to know when you're done with the question. Free response, you don't have any answer choices to choose from. You just have to remember that the work isn't necessarily required. It's simply about knowing when you can step away from the part. But I hope that that provides insight.
And we do have another question, and that was very, very helpful. That student did respond. So thank you for that, Chris.
Thank you.
Next question. Do you recommend watching the videos on an AP classroom or just using teachers' practice test materials?
Honestly, I would recommend the videos only because we can develop some bad habits the farther away we get from a concept. At least going back to the videos, you reestablish your foundation, no matter what, even if you know how to do the content correctly. you have your foundation solidified so that you're able to branch off in other directions based on what the questions are requiring of you. I would absolutely recommend checking out the videos. Yes, still do practice sections and questions. Just make sure you've got your foundation locked in.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that, Chris. And remember, students, although we do have a few minutes left, if you have any questions, please drop that into the Q&A box. Yet, students, one thing I do want to remind you all, Tutor.com is here to support and assist you. Remember, you can connect to live homework help from a live tutor 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And remember, you do access it through your school's learning management system. Help is available in so many subjects and even many AP courses. So please, while you're preparing for your AP tests, any type of standardized tests, visit Tutor.com. Check out that AP support you can receive. Remember, it is free. It's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Our tutors are there to really support you with your classroom assignments, but also prepping you for the AP test as well. Remember, we also have some great writing support for you as well. One of our most popular features besides math and science is the essay drop-off review feature that is at our site. So please, it enables you drop off a rough draft of an essay that you're working on, and you can actually receive feedback from one of our tutors in 12 hours. Also, students, remember, we really encourage you at the end of your Tutor.com session, please provide that post-session feedback. We really want to make sure that you get so much out of the site. It's user-friendly, but we really value your student comments and your feedback. So please remember, when you finish the session, remember to provide that post-session feedback and comments. It would be greatly appreciated. Remember, when you connect, when you land at Tutor.com, this is what you're going to see. For those students, remember, you can't actually conduct a session in Spanish, but we do want you to select your topic and subjects. Remember, there's great AP support that is available for you. You have the opportunity to conduct a session in either chat or in chat and voice. So we encourage you to actually submit that and then enter a question. One great thing that you can do is actually upload maybe a set of homework problem or a set of homework problems you're working on. Share it with a tutor, and you can connect with our tutors in around 1 minute to receive either that live homework support, or when you're prepping for your AP test, please, students, visit Tutor.com, access a tutor, and they're here for you. Chris, is there anything else you would like to add?
I just want to say everybody was absolutely fantastic and helping out with excellent questions. And I just sincerely hope that this helped in some way, shape, or form. I know that I never wanted to go and take any of the tests that I signed up for. I just hope that today offered some insight at the least, and that you found something useful that you could take away from today. Y'all are doing so much tremendous work, and you're so close to the finish line. Just keep up, keep marching forward, my friends. You all got this. You're rock stars.
And there was a question that was dropped in, and a recording will be shared with everyone after the webinar. Students, thank you so much for actually joining us here today. Chris, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us today. We know your time is very, very precious, and we really appreciate you just carving out some time, sharing that AP expertise, math knowledge with us. And again, thank you so much for your time today. Students, please visit Tutor.com, and let's just thank Chris again for today's session.
Thank you so much, everybody. Y'all are killing it today. I can't thank you enough for showing up and hanging out with me. I hope that it helped, and we'll keep watch for communications.